Hello, can you hear me now? Hello? Now I can hear you? Okay, I was messing with my audio settings, specifically tracks. I guess I don't fully understand how those work yet. I'll figure that out later. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. Okay. Outbreak. I think this is what we're on now. But yeah, how are you? Keiichi and the others face a brand new tragedy. The mysterious virus and the panic it creates are such laughable sights. The difficulty is average. Is this the beginning of the end, or has it already reached its conclusion? It is your job to bear witness to that. Well then, without further ado. Rushing to do a comm. It's due tomorrow and I need to send a work in progress. Oh, good luck. Got this. And you have Infinity Castle tickets for tomorrow. Let's go! I hope you enjoy. I really liked it. This is the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force. As of for today, we have quarantined the Hinamizawa region and other surrounding regions as designated by the prefectural governor. Hope you're good. I am. I'm just tired. As usual. We ask that all the residents of these areas please remain indoors and await further instructions. Please use your televisions, radios, and disaster management radio system to stay informed. You will not be permitted to leave this district until we can confirm it is medically safe to do so. We repeat, you will not be permitted to leave this district. Any who do not comply will be dealt with according to national law. So, everyone, we must ask that you please return to your homes and remain calm. It was really hard to hear that rough voice over the roar of their camouflaged helicopter. Have discovered the outbreak of a previously unknown virus. This virus has been classified as one of the most hazardous of viruses by the World Health Organization. Several government sources have already confirmed an offer from the American government to provide safety emergency assistance in developing a vaccine. We believe our government has already begun preparations to accept their aid. This virus has an incubation period stretching 30 to 50 days, and they are scrambling to secure enough vaccine for the 2,000 quarantined residents. At the present time, all phone lines to the Hinamizawa district are flooded, and reaching anyone within is nearly impossible. The current congestion is making it difficult for the prefecture's disaster prevention center to ascertain the exact situation. Furthermore, a ban on tap water and well water has been put in place. Please do not consume any water except that provided by the SDF's water trucks. In addition, illegally parking on any roads will hinder the disaster relief efforts. Please relocate your vehicles at once. Representative Unabara of the Democratic Socialist Party has criticized the avoidance of proper procedures in ordering the dispatch of SDF disaster relief, strongly voicing his opinion that this is a step backward towards militarism, which could lead to further isolation of our nation within the Asian political community. This is the XX Prefecture Disaster Prevention Center. At 12 today, we shall conduct simultaneous medical examinations on the following locations. Please follow the instructions of your town or neighborhood council as you assemble there. Please make certain you get examined unless you have extenuating circumstances. If you notice any symptoms of illness, you must... This is the JGSDF. By order of your prefectural governor, this region has been quarantined to prevent the further spread of disease. You are not permitted to leave the quarantine zone. We promise to secure food, water, other daily necessities, electricity, and communication systems for everyone. Please continue to remain calm. What? All of a sudden, one day, the peaceful boredom of everyday life was shattered. I doubt anyone woke up today expecting it to be any different from an ordinary early summer morning. The sky was just as blue as ever, and the sun rose just as it always did. Yet the helicopters flying at low altitudes with their speakers blaring, and the sight of traffic backed up at a blockade on the main road into the city, were enough to let everyone know that this morning was anything but normal. By the time it was broadcasted on the morning news, the confusion had already settled down to a degree. The residents of Hinamizawa couldn't act like this was all happening in some distant city as they listened to the emergency broadcasts, because there was no doubt that this emergency was happening in the very town we lived in. I stirred restlessly in my bed like I usually did before eventually crawling out, and when I came down to our dining room, I found my parents glued to the television, which is where I learned the news, peeking over their shoulders. I wondered just how many villagers muttered the same thing I did at first. Oh! Why he looked like that? Hold on. Hold on. There we go. What? What's going on? Keiichi, it's awful! Listen, they've discovered a horrible disease here in Hinamizawa, and they've quarantined the whole village. This is terrible. When do you think they're going to let us go? I need to head out for a meeting tomorrow for the event in Osaka. Quarantined? Then we can't go into town either? Looks like it. They said they'd provide food, but this is a real pain! We barely have anything in our refrigerator since today's when they have that special sale down in Okinomiya. More importantly, what is the virus anyway? It has to be pretty dangerous if they're quarantining the whole region, right? What's going on here? Are we infected too? Shh! They're explaining it on the TV right now. Once the initial signs appear, the following symptoms develop over the following week. Our entire family. No. I'm sure everyone in the village went speechless as the footage played. Oh gosh. A small African village was completely annihilated, and the terrible spectacle was almost too gory to look at. Given the unrecognizable state of the resulting corpses, the people out of this dangerous reach were being irresponsible in satisfying their urge to spectate, watching this footage of the harm dealt by this mysterious, heretofore unknown virus. But for those of us directly faced with the crisis, it was far too real and far too terrifying. I suddenly glanced up at the clock, and saw that it was long past time for me to meet up with Rena. I was already late. Normally, Rena would have come to pick me up directly if it was over 5 minutes past our meeting time, but that didn't happen this morning. Of course not. I'm sure Rena's also glued to the TV along with her family right about now. Either that, or maybe she's currently infected with the mysterious virus and is suffering under its symptoms. The moment that thought reached my mind, I started worrying about not just her, but Mion, Satoko, and Rika-chan as well. I ran for our telephone in the hallway on impulse and tried dialing a number, but I didn't even hear the usual dial tone. It made sense. The whole village and the population of those outside with relatives in the area probably went for their receivers all at once, just as I had. It was reasonable to assume that the phone lines couldn't keep up. That left me wanting to visit them, to make sure of their safety in person. But the whole village could be full of pockets of that dangerous virus. Wouldn't it be suicide to barge outdoors in that case? Keiichi, come here, quickly. My dad was just coming out of his atelier. His arms were full of cardboard boxes. From what I could see, they were packed full of duct tape wrapped in unopened vinyl bags. Apparently, my dad had them in stock to use with his paintings or something. I didn't even question why he had grabbed the duct tape in this emergency. I understood immediately why my dad was calling for me to help. Keiichi, you cover the second floor. Shut the windows tight and seal them up with duct tape. Our air conditioner might be connected to the air outside, too. Cover the AC vents with a newspaper, then seal them up with duct tape. I'll cover the first floor. Your mom can cover the kitchen. Are they going to be okay? Will they not suffocate? Dear, it's too late for any of that. Duct tape won't do anything to keep microorganisms out. It'll still make a small difference. Just help already. My dad's tone made it clear that he wasn't going to suffer any objections. But my mom was right. She was being relatively calm given the situation. Viruses are tiny organisms smaller than even dust, so it was pretty delusional to think that sealing up openings with store-bought duct tape could keep them out. At the same time, I understood how my dad was feeling too. It was just so sudden. Even if there was no scientific backing to his beliefs, and even though it wouldn't make any difference, he still had to try and do something to stop it. That would comfort his mind far more than just sitting in front of the television. Whenever my mom, oddly stubborn, and my father, wildly emotional, start arguing like that, I go up to the second floor to avoid them. My mom was right. I knew we couldn't really do anything to prevent infection, but I shared my dad's desire to do something about it, even if it was just for my own peace of mind. I looked out the window. The grand sight before me was a view I took pride in, one that moved me deeply when I first arrived here. The magnificent scenery itself was the same view as always of Hinamizawa's beautiful traditional buildings. Yet today, there was no sight of any villagers. I couldn't spot a single villager out working in the paddy fields. I was certain that the stubborn old farmers who wouldn't ditch their work even today, but that silly hope of mine was shattered. To be honest, that made me realize I was hoping to find solace in the sight of them carrying on like normal. Even the most stubborn of the village elders weren't out working their fields. Maybe they were afraid of getting infected with the virus, or maybe they were afraid of another villager thinking they were infected instead. In that sense, my dad's amateur idea of trying to keep the virus out with duct tape might be the more normal response, instead of questioning its effectiveness like my mom was doing. The village was shrouded in a silent fear. The only sounds to be heard were the voices over the disaster management radios and the roar of the SDF's helicopters. Those sounds only served to make the silence more chilling. Normally, the chorus of the cicadas would be starting around this time, but their chorus didn't reach the village's ears. Thank you for the hydrate and stretch. Ah, I dripped water. Hold on. There we go. June 28th, Tuesday, Day 2. With the water supply shut off, we couldn't use our flush toilet. The SDF relief squad had set up portable bathrooms, but since my dad was strongly opposed to using them, the Mayabata family continued to use our flush toilets without any running water. Ew! We had kept our bath water to use for laundry, so we were managing by scooping that into the basin and flushing it away. According to my dad, the excrement of disease carriers would be just full of viruses, so he refused to let our family go out and use the public bathrooms, saying that was the same as going out to get ourselves infected. We didn't have that much water left in our bathtub, though, so we couldn't keep using a flush toilet without water forever. To make matters worse, since the virus involved here has a 1-month incubation period, it wasn't hard to imagine the quarantine around Hinamizawa would last even longer than that. By my mom's quick estimate, the quarantine was likely to last 3 months. 3 whole months. It was the end of June, so the quarantine wouldn't be lifted until the end of September, or maybe even October. That meant that the whole summer of 1983 was going to be cut away from Hinamizawa. It was very tragic for us. On the first day, we were caught up in the fear that the virus was everywhere outside of our house. But then the water trucks and relief supplies arrived, thanks to the SDF. And once their doctor started the group examinations, we couldn't afford to stay completely shut inside any longer. Some people, like my dad, still refused to go outside even then, but they steadily started coming outside over time, both to secure necessities and assuage their fear of infection by having the doctors examine them. The same went for me. I couldn't stand staying cooped up in our creepy house with its duct-taped shutters, silently watching the television with no one but my family around. I was much more anxious to go outside and check on my friends' well-being. My dad continued to be stubborn about holing in the house, so my exasperated mom and I went to the group examinations together. Ha! They opened the door. The town council our family fell under had decided to conduct the examinations in the schoolyard. Lots of the villagers had gathered there, and we were all lined up according to the divisions used for the council's newsletters. The disparity between the villagers in their normal clothes and the doctors covered head to toe in the white raincoat-like suit was very unsettling. It was clear evidence that they suspected us all of being carriers of the virus.
Kiichi-kun!
Oh my gosh. Oh, Rena! Thank goodness you're safe.
Yeah, I just ran into Mi-chan. She was looking healthy too.
Really? What about Satoko and Rika-chan?
They're in a different division, so I think they had to go somewhere else. I've tried calling them a few times, but I can't get through.
I tried calling several times too, but I had no luck at all. I guess the phone lines are just too congested to handle it.
I heard a rumor that there was someone in a car who wouldn't listen to the SDF's directions, so they had an accident and crashed into a telephone pole, cutting the lines out completely. But another person said the government had switched them over to authorized use only, so the average citizen can't use them right now.
Long story short, everyone's confused and the information's all mixed up, huh? Right after I said that, someone smacked me hard on the back. It was Mion. Ketchan! Great to see you're safe. That's my line. I'm glad to see you're safe too. Mion made a big show of wiping her tears away, enjoying our reunion after only a scant few days. There's no need to explain it at this point, I think, but the old customs here meant Hinamizawa was governed by 3 ancient clans known as the Three Families. Right now, Mion's family, the Sonozaki family, was the head of that organization. According to Mion, the Sonozaki family was already taking the initiative and leading the unified town council to try and settle the whole situation. They were also... Ugh, my voice today. Why? They were also working together with the government and the SDF, so they had information that regular villagers didn't know about. Mion, be blunt with us. What's going on? Has the virus really infected all the villagers? According to this morning's explanation, the likelihood of that is pretty slim. From what they've said, the infection showed up over in Takatsuro, and hardly anyone lives over there. Since the quarantine was set up so quickly, they're saying they don't think it reached the Hinamizawa area yet. Once they can confirm everyone in Hinamizawa is clean, they're hopeful that they can start lifting the quarantine in stages.
I hope that's true. I feel bad for those living in Takatsuro, but it'd be nice if Hinamizawa's quarantine ends sooner.
That was when Mion gave us a sharp look. Then she grabbed my head and ran us, pulling us in close to her own. Then she whispered so quietly that only we could hear. I don't think we can be that optimistic, actually. I'm able to use a radio myself, you know. I modified mine to pick up transmissions from the police and the SDF. From what I'm hearing, it isn't that simple. After all, Hinamizawa is a pretty isolated village, all by itself here in a mountain range. They don't have a clue how this virus managed to transmit itself here from overseas. So far, none of the infected people the government has discovered have any history of traveling out of the country, so now they're investigating the travel history of everyone in the village, wondering if there might be another carrier. So you're saying that someone got infected while in a different country and brought this back to our village? Yeah, apparently there's some leeway in its incubation period. They can't rule out the chance that whoever brought it here is still incubating the disease. Also, there's no guarantee that the person ever traveled abroad at all. There's still a chance they got infected when they came into contact with the carrier from outside the village. By my guess, the quarantine zones won't be limited to just Hinamizawa. Worst case is the quarantine could extend to the prefecture, or even to this whole part of the country. How can this be? Also, this is just between us, but there's talk that this one might be different from the African killer virus they mentioned on TV. What do you mean? I'm not sure either, but some of the chatter I'm picking up on the radio suggests that they suspect this whole virus crisis might be caused by an endemic disease native to Hinamizawa. You mean some killer virus has been hiding in Hinamizawa for years? I'm not sure either. The only thing I do know is that there's an old legend still passed on around here that talks about something impure rising from the swamp and attacking the village. Makes you wonder whether something's risen up out of there again.
But Mi-chan, if that's true, then we can rest easy. I mean, the village wasn't wiped out all those years ago, right? Which means it's far less lethal than the virus they're talking about on TV that wipes out whole villages.
According to the myths of old Onigafuchi, anyone possessed by the impurity from the swamp becomes a demon. In the end, the villagers couldn't do anything and they were at their wits' end until Oyashiro-sama descended before them. Which means the village couldn't escape the disaster until a miracle occurred. Exactly. If not for that miracle, the village would have been wiped out. It seemed there were a lot of older villagers who believed this whole virus commotion was Oyashiro-sama's curse. I could see them here and there going through rosaries and offering up prayers as they begged for forgiveness. That commotion would settle down if Rika-chan, the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, would just deny that it's the curse. My granny's trying to explain that to the people from the SDF right now. Well, I doubt outsiders can understand what Rika-chama means to this village. Yeah, the superstitions aside, it would be a relief to see Rika-chan and Satoko myself. That's right. Hinamizawa has a unique religion that worships a guardian deity known as Oyashiro-sama. Central to that faith was the legend of Oyashiro-sama's curse. So, there was a lot of villagers conflating that there were a lot of villagers conflating that curse with the current commotion. That was why everyone wanted to see Rika Furude, who was considered to be Oyashiro-sama's reincarnation, alive and healthy. and hear her proclaim that this commotion had nothing to do with Oyashiro-sama. It was the first emergency situation of this manner that the village had faced. No one had yet to recover from the shock to their heart, and they wanted something to cling to. But even if the village was ruled by superstition, it was still a part of modern 20th century Japan. So of course they wanted to respond calmly without mulling about in confusion. So many had decided for themselves that as long as they saw Rika Furude safe and sound, then they would regain their composure. That also meant that if they couldn't see Rika Furude, then they would remain lost in their superstitions. Rika, where are you? And where is Hanyu? July 6th, Wednesday, day 10. Without school, I had completely lost my sense for what day it was, so the television programming was all that barely maintained my sense of daily life. For the first few days, the television only covered what they dubbed the Hinamizawa virus outbreak and the resulting quarantine. Once the 10th day had passed, the news only mentioned it when something special was happening. As far as the public was concerned, some minister or another hadn't cut his golf game short when the Hinamizawa crisis happened or something, so they quibbled over that, which led to queries into his secretary's salary or something. All completely pointless stuff. So long as it wasn't brought up in the news, society probably deluded themselves into believing that the virus crisis was resolved. I couldn't help but realize how coldly society gorged itself on the misfortune of others. By this point, most villagers had gotten over the hesitation to go outside, at least to collect supplies and such. Lately, Mion's been wondering if it's not just our village being quarantined, but Okinomiya as well. We didn't have to go into town to shop, and some had started joking that it was much easier with water and food all being delivered for free. I'd force a smile at that, but I couldn't shake the sense of entrapment brought on by the quarantine lasting 10 days already. The same went for Mion. She sounded lighthearted and carefree on the surface, but Mion couldn't shake the anxiety from her expression either. With the way things were, staying at home wasn't helping. If I was at least talking to someone, I could distract myself. I even started volunteering to help carry the plastic tanks of drinking water, excited at the chance to see my friends buy the water supply. Of course, it wasn't like it was fun, though. When we saw each other, we only shared our anxieties. But even so, it was still far better than huddling under a blanket all by myself. Ketchan, you look well? Oh, you look well. Got any strange spots?
Mi-chan, that's not funny.
Mion, and Rana too. Thank goodness. The phones are still out as usual, so seeing you here is a relief.
Yeah, lately I'd been wishing they'd reopen the school. Oh.
If the school were to reopen, then we could all think back on our peaceful everyday lives, and do our best to pretend everything was fine. But I guess not. If I recall, Chie-sensei lives in Okinomiya, so they can't reopen the school if she can't get here because of the quarantine. Well, it's not so bad. Since school's closed over this unprecedented disaster, we should take the chance to enjoy living free like this. Mion's personality was truly valuable in a time like this. She could get the conversation going easily, and make it as light as our usual everyday chatter. But in the end, she brought the conversation back to our worries about our current situation. Oh, right. Rena, Ketchan, don't get upset, but listen. This is just between us, okay? Mion drew us both behind cover and lowered her voice to a whisper.
What? What is it, Mi-chan?
Have you learned something new? The SDF gave us a good enough explanation when the quarantine first started, but lately they haven't made any more announcements about the ongoing situation. That meant we were left with nothing but rumors and word of mouth. But since we were further isolated based on how we were divided under the council, the villagers had limited interaction with each other. And even those rumors weren't able to get around well enough. Fortunately enough, our village had a decent amount of amateur radio fans, so they were using their radios to contact each other. Mion was one of the people using her radio to check on how the other quarantined areas were doing, trying to get a grasp of the full state of Hinamizawa. Well, our phone lines still haven't recovered, so the radios are really crucial in times like these. So, Did you learn anything? Yes. Well, it sounds like it's true that Rika-chan's been taken into custody, and no one knows what's going on with her. She took a brief pause after that. The Sonozaki family had been strongly requesting that Rika Furude go around the village so they could wipe away any fears of Oyashiro-sama's curse. But those demands kept getting ignored. The SDF didn't want a carrier traversing the village and spreading infection, so they kept each council area strictly isolated, and so that none of the villagers could find out how Rika Furude was doing, which only stirred their anxieties up even more. If anything were to happen to her, the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, then that could only mean one thing. The end of the village, as passed down in legend. That fear had finally reached its logical conclusion. If they couldn't get information on Rika Furude, then something had happened to her. And the SDF was trying to cover it up. That fear had made its way into the rumor. Everyone denied those rumors, of course, but the only way to get rid of them was for the villagers to see Rika Furude safe and sound. That wasn't happening, though. So the villagers' collective anxiety was only growing stronger.
What do you mean no one knows how Rika-chan is doing? Are you saying Rika-chan got hit by the virus?
Shh! You're being too loud! I don't know if it was the virus, but either way, she was taken into custody by the disease control squad, and she hasn't been seen since. No one knows if she's safe. Several different people witnessed her being taken away, so that's certain at least. When did that happen? The day of the quarantine.
And Satoko-chan? She lives with Rika-chan, so, well...
If Rika-chan fell victim to the virus, then as her housemate, Satoko would've... I don't have any info on that. Figures. The elders of the village may care about Rika-chan, but they never wanted anything to do with Satoko.
Do you think Satoko-chan was taken into custody too?
Doesn't sound like it. Though I think it's just basic disease control to suspect infection in anyone living with an infected person. From what I'm hearing on the radio, only Rika-chan was taken in. Satoko wasn't, apparently. Also, this part sounds kind of strange, but... strange. Yeah, so you know how Satoko's parents were in favor of the dam being built, right? Ordinary visual novel streams are peak VN time. Welcome, NLB! Thank you for dropping by. I appreciate it. I like VN time too. How are you doing? And how afterwards they died in an accident due to Oyashiro-sama's curse?
You're talking about the rumor that Satoko-chan and the Hojo family are cursed and hated by Oyashiro-sama.
Yeah. There's always been a horrible group of people that said living with a cursed person like Satoko would cause her taint to pass on to the holy reincarnation, Rika-chan. And now those people are starting to say this is Oyashiro-sama's curse, that Satoko's to blame. What? That's stupid as hell! Those jerks will blame Satoko at the drop of a hat! Good, making some late lunch ramen and relaxing in the AC after being in 95-degree weather. I'll be looking back and forth, but I'm here. Oh yes, get some good rest and good food. Ramen sounds really good. I almost had ramen for lunch today too, but I wanted to save my voice. I am doing awesome. I'm just eepy. But that's a normal occurrence for me, so otherwise, I'm great. I'm happy to see our usual squad back in this VN. We had a really long stretch of time without them.
Yippee!
But yeah, have a good lunch and cool down, please. 95 is not fun. It's 91 where I am right now, and it's like, ugh, that's already bad too. Of course it's nonsense. But people in the other areas are starting to say they might be able to quell Oyashiro-sama's anger by binding up Satoko and sinking her into the swamp. And they're talking like they believe it too. Louisiana is hell. Is it moist over there? I feel like I recall, like, when I visited Louisiana, because my great-grandmother used to live there. I feel like I remember it being moist. Very? Ooh, I hate humidity. My condolences. Absolutely not. Humidity makes the hot air soup. Yeah. Yeah, no. Not for me. Stay out. Or, not stay out. I was gonna say stay out of the outdoors, but that doesn't make sense. Or, does it? Stay indoors. That's what I meant. Stay indoors.
No way! Are we savages now? I thought we were civilized. It's only been a week since our daily routines were broken, and we're already talking about drowning people in swamps?
Yes, indeed. Rena's indignation was justified. But thinking back on it, Hinamizawa was possessed by such strange beliefs long before this whole virus commotion. Hinamizawa had never shown any proof it was a civilized land. The people there simply acted that way. But once you tore away the facade, they quickly revealed themselves as adherents to some truly bizarre delusions. Judging from your expression, Mion, you're not going to tell us this was some joke all along, right? Mion's silence and downcast stare affirmed it as true. Of course I've told them they need to calm down over the radio, but they're not listening to me at all. Ugh, crap! If Rika-chan's been taken into custody, then that means Satoko's currently living in the storage hut all by herself. She's in danger if they try to pull anything, isn't she?
True. There's only so much Satoko-chan can do by herself. Wouldn't it be better to shelter her in our area? Wouldn't it?
Rena's suggestion was a good one. If we left Satoko alone like this, then those caught up in those wild fantasies might go after her. But whose home could we shelter her in? According to Mion, the rumors that Satoko was already infected with the virus are being spread as though they're true. Word of mouth, that primitive means of communication, was all Hinamizawa had. It was easy for rumors to work their way into such communication. And because of mass psychology, people convince themselves that those statements are true, embellishing them even further until they become established fact. At that point, the truth won't matter. Satoko will effectively become one of the infected. Once that happens, whichever home takes her in will face the same treatment. It went without saying, but Mion's home, the Sonozaki family, were already on bad terms with Satoko and the Hojo family. It would be extremely difficult for Mion's family to shelter Satoko. What about my family? Keiichi, your dad is literally taping windows. I don't think he wants Satoko in your house. My mother would probably understand, but considering the fact that my father is still obstinately refusing to expose himself to the outdoors, I couldn't imagine him taking Satoko in.
Yeah, I know it's impossible for your families. So if we do end up sheltering Satoko-chan, I'll shelter her in my home. Don't worry, I won't let my father voice any objections.
I had no idea why, but Rena held control of her family's finances, so if she got serious, she could make her father give in. That's crazy, especially considering you don't need to use your money right now, so... Okay, sure. It made me sad that I couldn't stick my chest out and say my family could too, and I hated that she just assumed it wasn't possible, but I couldn't do anything about that. It's not like that pride would matter in this situation. Alright, if we can make contact with Satoko, we'll tell her to head to Rena's home. I wish I could reach out to her myself, but from what you've told us, Mion, it sounds like the area around Satoko's house is dangerous. That's because there's a lot of strong believers who live around there. But, to be honest, Satoko's not the only problem. Depending on how it goes, both of you two could be in trouble too. Mion's eyes grew even sharper, looking back and forth between me and Rena. Even though she was worried about Satoko, the chill in her gaze was enough to shred the naive thought that at least we should be safe. I mentioned this the other day, right? The rumors that this virus might be indigenous to Hinamizawa? Those rumors are starting to gain a lot of traction. Some are even saying every villager's probably been infected for hundreds of years. But that's just crazy! If that were true, then people would have been dying every day way back when! Well, the ones insisting on that argument have an interesting idea. They're saying that the virus remains stable and harmless so long as you stay in the village. They go even further, arguing that the families who have lived in the village for many, many years are all born with an immunity that keeps them safe. I don't get it. So what? Are you telling me that they're saying that people like Rana and I, who moved here from the outside, are a risk because we don't have that immunity? That's exactly it. They're saying our harmony or whatever with that virus is collapsing because of the people moving into Hinamizawa. And, that's making the virus go crazy in everyone. Nah.
You're not telling us you believe in such an outrageous idea too, are you, Mi-chan?
Of course not. There's no way I'd fall for anything that sounds that crazy. But for some reason, everyone else believes it. I don't get it at all. Normally, no one would ever believe such stupid nonsense. But these past few days, those weird ideas and rumors are being passed around like they're just common sense. I've been listening on the radio since the very first day, but lately the villagers are believing weirder and weirder stuff. I don't know if it's mental stress or trauma or whatever, but calling it that is optimistic at this point. These lies and rumors are running rampant, and no one is doing anything to stop them. If anyone tries, they could be treated as one of the infected too. It's getting really awful around here. Something's not right with people, so watch yourselves. Rena and I were both left speechless by Mion's desperation. It was clearly a good thing that we weren't able to listen to what she's picked up over the radio. Thrust into these abnormal circumstances, their frustration had reached its peak, and that, along with the anxieties and fears founded on faith, were producing new rumors one after another. And it was steadily approaching the point where someone would have to be sacrificed in order to clear those rumors away. Judging from Mion's expression, we were already approaching that critical moment. That was the moment I first realized it. That there was clear hostility in the looks the villagers gave us as we talked to each other. Apparently it wasn't just my imagination either. Rena was quick to pick up on that too.
Ichi-kun, protect yourself, okay?
Yeah, I don't like being distrusted just because of stupid rumors, but it's best not to fuel the fire. Get your bat, buddy. Get your bat. Yeah. Rena, Kechan, you two should avoid going outside unless you have to. Also, make sure you don't go out alone, and seal your homes up tight. Oh girl, that's already done. If anyone says anything inconsiderate, don't provoke them, no matter how frustrating. Got it? The hostile looks I felt from time to time were too much to pretend I just imagined them. The accursed customs of a village that had avoided contact with outsiders for centuries weren't about to be brushed away by a scant few years of civilization. Rena and I could only nod in acknowledgement of Mion's warning, the tense looks clear on our faces. Do we get a Rika POV, or is she just not gonna be here the entire time? Oh. What is this? Showa 58 HQ, General Affairs Division, Section 1E34. July 7th, 1983. Director of Disaster Relief, Hinamizawa Region. Evacuation Orders, Emergency. The Director of Disaster Relief is to evacuate the disaster relief units immediately. During evacuation, units are to follow the directions of the National Institute of Infectious Diseases. Notes. 1. Orders. The disaster relief units will follow the directions of the National Institute of Infectious Diseases and evacuate to the designated zone outside the quarantine. 2. Reason. The routine blood test detected a positive reaction for the type, I don't know what that symbol is, 173 virus in 4 squad members. This proves that the disaster relief unit's current equipment is ineffective at preventing infection. Showa 58 HQ, General Affairs Division, Section 1E35. July 7, 1983. Commander of the 738th Equipment Test Company. Dispatch orders, emergency. The 738th Equipment Test Company is to deploy immediately with version 13 disease prevention equipment under the command of the Director of Disaster Relief, Hinamizawa Region. Notes. 1. Orders. As of today, the 738th Equipment Test Company will be placed under the command of the Director of Disaster Relief, Hinamizawa Region. The test company shall follow the Director's orders and deploy on-site immediately. 2. Mission. Peacekeeping in the quarantine zone. 3. Remarks. Discharge of firearms will be authorized under the enclosed conditions. Huh? That doesn't sound very peaceful. July 6, 1983. Alphabet Project Board of Directors. Director of Disaster Relief, Hinamizawa Region. I still don't know what that symbol is. I'm going to say N. Regarding the N173 virus. The virus has been classified as a Category C neuroparasitic virus. What follows is an explanation of its properties. Of all the viruses that infect the human nervous system, this one demonstrates extremely strong compatibility with mankind. Also, due to the difficulty in identifying symptoms in the infected, its existence was not confirmed until the modern age. According to an unofficial investigation conducted by the UN in 1948, over 99% of the human species contains this parasitic virus within their brain. Furthermore, it has been pointed out that it is likely this virus has been with humanity from the beginning. As that all suggests, this virus is extremely well integrated into the human body and the host is unaware of the parasite. This makes the virus very similar to other microbes within the human body, such as Escherichia coli, coli, which is commonly known of today. However, the problem with this virus is that we have identified the possibility of this virus interfering with the host's brain functions. This virus makes its host amiable to other hosts of the same strain, and it directs its host to be antagonistic towards hosts of different strains. The UN investigation has discovered several hundred strains that would be classified under this virus, and another shocking fact was uncovered as well. The distribution map of these strains, oddly enough, matches up with present-day national borders and religious distributions. Furthermore, it is suspected that each strain of this virus is deeply involved in shaping the foundation of its host's behavior and personality. So the theory stands that the unique traits of this parasitic virus are responsible for several tendencies generally attributed to race or nationality. In other words, this virus is theorized to be indirectly responsible for all patterns within societies, personalities, and the cultures of different ethnicities and nations. The first to uncover the existence of this virus was a German doctor within the Nazi administration, and it is theorized that this discovery led to the administration's massacre of particular peoples. That's crazy. The UN Secret Investigation Committee has identified the possibility that this virus has indirectly led humanity to commit its most heinous atrocities, and they called for the extermination of this virus. That called being held back by the fear that such an objective could be triggered ethnic cleansing. As a result, all research on the virus was perpetually prohibited in 1955, and they elected to discard the records of that research. This meant humanity would perpetually embrace the parasite and prohibit the further discovery of its existence as well. However, several countries continue to research the virus on their own in secret. Since there has been no exchange of information between these, the state of the research in other nations is unknown. Here in Japan, a research team was founded in secret by a group of medical schools in the late 1960s. Their research is the foundation for these current studies. America has caught wind that this virus is the cause of the most recent incident, and they will be planning to steal our research. We must not respond to their attempts to claim that research disguised as offers of aid. Furthermore, amongst the strains of this virus, strain N173 is a rare variety which displays extremely dramatic symptoms. As I have already explained, traditionally this virus is extremely compatible with the human body and is totally unnoticeable. Yet the N173 strain causes dramatic alterations to personality within several days of infection. The most significant change is the promotion of anxiety and aggression. Yet it retains the unique aspects of the virus, guiding those changes in psychology to occur naturally. The infected residents of the Hinamizawa region already tend to strongly exhibit these tendencies, and have demonstrated the potential to cause certain catastrophes, like mass riots and mass murder, within short periods of time. Direction of this matter should immediately be given over to the Alphabet Project, and as such, it should be carefully investigated as one of our nation's assets. I am confident that research into this matter will contribute to our national interest. Furthermore, the suppression of riots caused by this matter can only be conducted by the Alphabet Board of Directors, which possesses extrajudicial authority. I hope that you will consider these factors before making your decision tomorrow. National Institute of Infectious Diseases. Head of Room 13, Iwashi. Am I supposed to recall that name? I don't think it's familiar. I guess we'll find out. July 7th, Thursday, day 11. As the disturbing atmosphere towards outsiders like the Mayabata family grew stronger, there was another change that fanned the anxiety of the villagers. Whose POV is this? The SDF had been supporting the villagers' unstable lifestyles as well as providing mental support, but they had suddenly disappeared from the village. The elders, who hated standing around in long lines before the water supply trucks, had already lined up early, but no matter how long they waited, the trucks weren't showing up. At first, we made the generous assumption that something had delayed them. But the fact that the SDF's deliveries had always been punctual before only worked against them, fanning anxieties even higher. Once it was long past the scheduled delivery time, the morning line grew steadily longer, and the anger they felt at the water trucks for not arriving grew into anxiety, and finally, into fear. The situation rapidly grew worse, and finally people began whispering that the SDF had abandoned us. anyone would be shocked after hearing that rumor. The actions of the SDF were the final dam maintaining the village's sanity. With the dam suddenly removed, it was easy to feel as though the village had been cast out of Japan. However, there were a few villagers who weren't frightened by the SDF's disappearance. They had taken an optimistic view and assumed that the quarantine would be lifted. Those people even tried to leave the village, yet something strange occurred at the barricades sealing us off. Is that a tank? Instead of the personnel clad in white raincoats that had been manning the barricades before, there were soldiers blocking the path, wearing much tougher-looking camouflage gear that was more like a spacesuit. They even had an armored car parked behind them too. Now, why did the villagers insist on calling them soldiers? Because the guns they carried looked that dangerous. At the very least, none of the SDF members performing relief efforts had carried guns. Not only were the soldiers carrying their own guns, but the armored car also had a heavy machine gun stationed at the top hatch, and they aimed its muzzle at the villagers without hesitation. After aiming, they issued a warning too. That's crazy. This is the JGSDF. You are not permitted to leave the quarantine zone. Please return to your homes at once. Seeing and hearing that made them certain. Circumstances had changed. The commotion about this dangerous virus had progressed to the point where it was beyond the SDF's control. So they abandoned providing aid to the village and were trying to seal it away. That gave way to anger at the nation, who abandoned their relief efforts, and even greater fear at the idea that things had progressed that poorly. The villagers tried demanding an explanation of affairs from the soldiers. But they fired live ammo without remorse, intending to intimidate, and announced that they would target their legs next if they did not leave immediately. The villagers then scattered like spiders and fled back to the village. That's crazy. Afterwards, their story grew exaggerated, and people started saying some of them were actually shot and wounded or even dead, causing even further turmoil. Actually, there's still a chance that part of the warning fire was all made up too. But there's no way to verify that anymore and no need to, because that story wasn't being proven false. So it had already become truth. On top of that, some kind of jamming wave was emitted from somewhere, suddenly making the radios useless, leaving word of mouth as the only means of communication, which increased the turmoil even further. That day, the first gunshot rang out in the village. We couldn't know for sure if the soldiers trapping us in had fired on a villager, like the rumor suggested, or if some villager had fired their hunting rifle. But as that gunshot roared through the village, the whole population fell away from the law and order of civilized Japan. I can read. The town council used their network to reach out and explain there was a mistake in the organization of relief efforts on the SDF's side, and that due to the mistake, it would take some time before the relief efforts resumed. They also asked the villagers to help one another until that time came. Had that message been sent out before such great anxiety spread throughout the village, then they might have been able to improve things a little. But it was all too late. Even though the SDF had ceased supplying food and water, every house had at least some stored up. However, no one knew how long this delay of provisions would last. The noxious, heated air permeating the village was steadily robbing people of their sanity. Fearing that some insurgent might descend upon them in search of food, the shopping district had banded together and armed all the shops, forming their own neighborhood watch. Barricades taken from the dam site were lined up at the entrance to the shopping district. We are closed indefinitely. If you have no business here, you may not set foot within. If you still insist on entering, then please discuss it with us on a case-by-case basis. Read the sign that they had posted up where the residents of the shopping district took their turns standing watch with hunting rifles. There was also another small flyer beside it. Those living in Takatsuro, please go away. That one was based on the rumors of the infected in Takatsuro. However, as the rumors continued to grow, there would likely be more signs posted next to it prohibiting other regions as well. That's so mean. For a moment, we thought that we might be able to have more interaction now that the SDF was no longer quarantining us separately. But the youth groups in each town council quickly took up that mantle of isolation. Everyone believed that their area had yet to become infected, and they could remain safe if they kept out people from the other areas. Hinamizawa was fundamentally a farming village, but there were several people who had made their living through hunting since long ago, so the number of hunting rifles wasn't exactly small. Because of that, those who owned one volunteered to serve as guards. The number who volunteered directly translated into that town council's power. Either that, or because it became their power to blur the lines between fantasy and reality in order to realize their delusions of persecution. That day, it was July 7th, the day of Tanabata. When we turned the television on, it displayed images of cute young children writing their wishes on boards and stretching out to hang them up on bamboo stalks. Yet here in Hinamizawa, our Tanabata involved posted signs rejecting the infected up on violent-looking barricades, while many took up hunting rifles and glared at each other suspiciously. It was hard to believe this was still the same Japan. Rest in Peace's Tanabata Festival. Late at night, my mother visited me. She was clutching an envelope in her hand. Keiichi, just now we received a letter for you, Keiichi. A letter? To me? I snatched it up at once. It read, To Keichan, from Mion. What was this about, and during such a dark time? According to my mother, the doorbell rang, and by the time she reached our front door, it was shoved through the gap. She could have just come in if she went out of her way to visit. So the fact that she avoided doing so, and left only a letter, had me feeling a tinge anxious. Though considering the abnormal state of the village lately, it made sense that Mion would be careful about trying to make contact. All the talk of this being an indigenous virus, or being Oyashiro-sama's wrath, would ultimately end with those people suspecting the outsiders who'd moved into town recently. The whole Maebara family was made painfully aware of that lately. Even before opening this letter, I could understand that things had reached the point where Mion, as a Sonozaki, couldn't visit us in broad daylight anymore. And yet the contents of this letter quickly informed me that that was still a naive point of view. To Keichan, be careful. The idea that we should make an example out of the Maebaras and Ryugus is gaining more strength in our council area. I know it's a really crazy idea, but they've already been driven to the point where they'll be consumed by fear if they don't sacrifice someone. I was only able to argue otherwise the first few times, but starting several days ago, if anyone tried to object, they argued that person was covering for the infected because they were infected too. Now no one's putting a stop to this talk of lynching you all. It was fine back when they were all evenly split between the virus supporters and the Oyashiro-sama's curse supporters, since they'd both just argue incoherently with each other. But lately, the curse supporters are gaining ground. It won't be long before they're leading the whole group. If my granny were well, she'd never allow such a riot, but she actually came down with a fever a few days ago, and now she can't get out of bed. Some of my relatives have started spreading rumors that it's the infection, so I'm losing my ability to speak at the council too. Like, if I'm not careful, they could sacrifice me as well. With the position I'm in now, it's going to be hard for me to speak on behalf of you and Rana's families anymore. I could see that Mion's writing had steadily grown more hastened and sloppy as it went on. I didn't even have to ask to understand how she must have felt. I think it's dangerous to stay in Hinamizawa any longer than this. At the very least, if we stay shut up in our homes like this, then sooner or later we'll be murdered. So I'm planning to escape the village tomorrow night. The SDF is blocking off the perimeter, but the Sonozakis have secret tunnels, and one of them exits out beyond the quarantine. Me and Granny are the only ones who know about these tunnels. I wanted to wait until after she recovered, but that doesn't look possible anymore. My granny just told me to leave her behind and run. My granny is saying that this is a return to the ancient legend of demons coming out from Onigafuchi Swamp. Right now, all the villagers are possessed by demons, and they're going to start murdering each other. In those legends, Oyashiro-sama managed to calm everyone down, but before they were able to do so, the blood-soaked conflict they produced resulted in a massive number of casualties. They're going to kill us all! That brings me to the main point. Tell your family tonight about all of this and have them get ready, Keichan. I'll come for you all tomorrow night, and then we'll escape. Bring your cash, insurance card, bank book, and family seal. Also, fill your backpack with clothes and daily necessities, but don't let it get too heavy. Don't bring anything you have to carry. Make absolutely certain you can use both hands. For shoes, wear a comfortable pair you can walk easily in. I'm sending the same letter to Rena as well. This might seem like it's coming out of left field, so I doubt it feels real to you just yet. But trust me, I've been to the town council meetings and the gatherings of the three families, so I have a very clear idea of just how crazy this village has become. You need to understand how dangerous this is. Even if you have faith and do everything I've asked, I'm estimating only a 10% possibility at best of you, me, and Rena, and our families all escaping Hinamizawa safely. 10%? Those odds aren't great, Mion. That was the end of Mion's letter. What the hell? This whole situation was too much for me to take in, so I gripped my head. Yet Mion had entrusted this letter to me and asked me to trust her, knowing I'd feel that way. Once I took 3 deep breaths, I was able to realize that the danger Mion spoke of wasn't too far-fetched. Considering the festering attitude that had filled Hinamizawa lately, what she had written here was unmistakably true. At the same time, that made me fear for Satoko. It made sense that the letter didn't mention Rika, who the SDF had in custody, but there wasn't a single word written here about Satoko, who'd been left in this village all alone. The only names on it were mine and Rena's. There's no way Mion could have forgotten about the club members, so there's no way she'd forget to mention Satoko. So then why? Terrible imaginations assailed my mind, each of them trying to suffocate me. That's right. Mion had already mentioned her. She told us there were those who seriously believed that Oyashiro-sama's anger would subside if Satoko were offered as a sacrifice. No way. Is Satoko... I shot up from my seat at the metal bat, and the metal bat leaning against the bookshelf fell down, stopping against my feet. It was almost like it was telling me to take it with me. Mion said, "Don't bring anything you have to carry, bro." That was when I heard a gunshot. If this had been a normal, peaceful day, I would have assumed it was some kid having fun by setting off firecrackers or bottle rockets. But because we were in such an abnormal situation, I didn't make those wrong assumptions, encouraged as they were by times of peace. I just got an achievement that said shots fired. One of the club members takes a bullet for the team. Who died? I opened my curtain and strained to peer into the darkness when I heard another gunshot. It sounded like it was even closer this time. I thought I could hear someone shouting something nearby. Suddenly, our doorbell began ringing frantically. Bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing bong. My mind became clear. All unnecessary noise vanished from my thoughts. It felt like I didn't even need to breathe, and in that vacuum state, I picked up the metal bat at my feet and raced for the front door. At the entrance, I found my mom cowering and my dad running in from the kitchen with a carving knife. Up until a moment ago, I would have thought it strange for my dad to respond so violently, but in this exact moment, that actually felt like the proper response. My mom looked back at my dad, wondering if it was safe to open the door. He had her step away from it. The button for our doorbell was pressed at our gate, so whoever had pressed it now had come through our gate and was standing right in front of the house. Then there was a bang, 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 knocking violently on our door. "Who is it?" my father shouted. They answered immediately.
Good evening. It's Ryugu. Please let me in.
"It's Rena!" I leapt out from behind my father. From the sound of Rena's voice, this was an emergency, and we needed to open the door right away. Even if we were plunged into a nightmare situation where the villagers had started a bloodbath, we club members would never doubt each other. What? Mion! Are you alright?
She's not alright. We need to hurry and stop the bleeding.
Rena was carrying a blood-soaked Mion whose breathing was fading fast. Asking if she was alright was just a waste of time, not even a social courtesy. After that cry from Rena, we carried Mion in past our door and laid her down on the floor. Mion's left shoulder was badly injured, and her clothes were stained red with blood. Her clothes were supposed to be yellow. The shirt Mion loved to wear in her free time, the bright yellow shirt she always wore once school was over. That symbol of all our fun times together. That shirt that I was always happy to see. Was now completely stained a purest red. "Hey! She needs help! Grab a towel or something!" Mion was holding her wound with a handkerchief, but the blood continued to spill from it. Her handkerchief would have dripped blood if it were wrung out. It was impossible to tell what color or design it used to be, and whether it was Mion's favorite. What on earth happened? Rena-chan, what's going on here? My father asked, without putting away his knife. Rena frowned, having difficulty deciding where to even begin. Her expression made it clear that we didn't have time for her to explain. But did we even need an explanation? The bright red blood staining her body from when she carried Mion was better than any words at conveying the urgency of the situation. Also, we could soon explain it much faster than any explanation Rena might produce, because moments later, we heard a tremendous bang outside our front door. Did she have a gunshot wound? We realized the situation without a moment to spare. She was shot! Someone had shot her outside our house! Where did that come from? Ah! Rena spun around at the sound of the shot, all while raising the huge hatchet she had carried in one hand, even while carrying Mion. Ah! Keiichi! I gripped my bat and chased after Rena, my feet still bare. I didn't even hear my father calling for me behind us. Rena! Rena leapt on someone standing at our front gate, ruthlessly splitting his head open with her hatchet. Huh? The moment was unbelievable and all too short. Rena easily brandished her huge hatchet at another man and threw it at him with tremendous force. A silver glint of moonlight flashed off the blade as it soared into the man's face. The man let out a short cry as a small dark spray spewed from his head. My understanding of typical social morals made my brain want to shout, "What are you doing, Rena?" But I also wanted to know who was such a threat that they warranted this reaction. Dang. Once Rena reached the man stumbling around with her hatchet in his face, she roughly yanked it out and slammed the long hatchet into his head over and over. The man begged repeatedly for her to stop, but Rena didn't listen to him at all. Once she confirmed he wasn't moving anymore, she spoke.
Killing someone means that you're ready to be killed in return, so don't take it lightly!
It was almost like those words were meant for me. From Rena's perspective, I probably looked like I was still too accustomed to peace to understand the emergency we faced. But that was when Rena turned and shouted.
That man's still alive!
Huh? Oh! The man Rena first defeated, the man that had fired a gun at our front door, was clutching his forehead and trying to stand. He was already injured so badly we could probably let him go. But that thought was probably just me clinging to peace. Rena didn't have that thought at all. The man was holding his head with one hand, but his other was still holding his hunting rifle. The threat this man posed wasn't dealt with if he could still pull the trigger of his gun.
Ah!
The thick lump of metal swung into him once more. This time, the man's head cracked open. Rena turned back and glared. Glared at me. I was closest to that man, not Rena. Rena had shouted so I could take him down. Yet I stood there spacing out, so Rena attacked him. He'd had a gun. If he'd been quicker, Rena couldn't have done anything from her position. That's why she entrusted him to me, but I just stood there blankly, still unable to grasp the situation. Her stern expression made me realize that, so I immediately apologized. Sorry.
It's fine, just hurry!
Rena yanked her hatchet out of the man's head and picked up his gun with her other hand.
Even if you don't shoot, a gun can still be used to frighten opponents.
Ugh, right.
That's fine, just hurry up and get ready to run.
Huh? Didn't Mion say she'd come tomorrow in the letter she wrote? There goes my false sense of security. Oh yeah, but tell me, what on earth happened? I asked Rena as we ran back to my front door.
You got a letter from her too, right, Keiichi-kun? Mi-chan brought the same letter over to my house.
Ew.
That was when the neighborhood watch discovered her and shot her. Mi-chan hadn't done anything to them. All she did was deliver a letter to me and they shot her. He said that the Ryugus were infected, and anyone interacting with them was an ally of the infected, but they decided that all on their own, and they shot her for it. Mi-chan hadn't done anything to them, But they didn't care and they shot her anyway.
Rena's eyes were full of anger and sadness as tears spilled down her cheeks. There wasn't anything I could say to her while she was possessed by those powerful emotions. When we returned to my front door, Mion had already been given a towel for the blood, and my mother was with her, helping her put pressure on the wound. My mother was all shook up. The only medicines we kept in the house were Band-Aids, headache medicine, and cold medicine at best. We didn't have anything to help treat a gunshot wound. Rena came back into our house with more blood splattered on her clothes and staining her hatchet. Given the commotion that just happened, my father understood everything once he saw the hunting rifle in Rena's hands. Once Rena understood that he did too, she spoke.
Sir, if we don't flee this place right now, we'll die. My own father was already murdered. Just now. He tried to save Mi-chan, so they didn't even hesitate.
Dang.
They shot him as easily as if they were driving off crows. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Mion's mouth opened feebly after hearing Rena's screams. I'm sorry, Rena. If I hadn't screwed up, I'm really sorry.
It's not your fault, Mi-chan, and I don't hate anyone anymore. Those who deserve my hatred have all paid the proper price. So did the man who shot you, Mi-chan.
Just moments ago, Rena watched her father get murdered and Mion get shot, and then she dragged herself out of that hell, where even her own life was in danger. The expression on her face was one I had never glimpsed in our daily life, and it made me realize just how hellish it had all been for her.
Anyway, you need to get ready to run right now. The others are already closing in.
Why? What are the other villagers coming here for? What are they trying to do? There was no need to ask for an answer from Mion's bloody mouth. That was why my father swallowed his confusion, and after clearing his throat, simply asked one thing. Run. To where?
There's a hidden tunnel in Mi-chan's secret basement that none of the villagers know about. So long as we can make it there, we should be able to pull through.
Rena explained what was written in the letter on Mion's behalf. Mion still tried to explain, but ended up coughing instead. Dad! Mom! We don't have a moment to waste. Let's run. Right. Let's go. My father registered the pressing danger, and it only took several seconds to abandon his morals as an average member of normal society before nodding. But my mother couldn't make a quick decision. But if we run, what'll happen to our home? We don't know what's going to happen. If the villagers come here, they may very well burn our house down. But if my mother understood that, then her hesitation didn't make sense. If they were willing to burn down our home, then what good would holding up inside do? Who knows what they would do to us then? So true. My mother wasn't an idiot. Well, maybe that's exactly why she was so confused. At this moment, my father, who had been on edge since the first day of the quarantine, was the one acting reasonable. Still, my mother managed to regain some sense, so she went back in and grabbed only her handbag with our bank book. My father took the hunting rifle from Rena. He boasted that he knew how to handle one after using a similar type of air gun, but it was up to the listener to determine how reassuring that sounded. Mion told us to leave her behind since she'd only slow us down, but Rena slapped her hard after that suggestion.
No! Without you, we won't know where the secret basement is. Don't abandon your responsibility so lightly. Now take us there!
With you around, I can't die an easy death at all. It looked like Mion had recovered enough energy to talk back at least, but we couldn't leave her wound untreated forever. If we don't get a proper doctor to look at her, then all that blood loss will lead to disaster.
Hey, Mi-chan, we don't have time to debate this, so give me an answer.
Rena glared at Mion with a dry expression and asked her just one thing.
Why were you suggesting we should escape without Satoko-chan?
Yeah, I wondered that myself. What's going on with Satoko, Mion? She's in a worse position than me and Rena, right? We can't just leave Satoko behind. Satoko's... Mion trailed off, but Rena wasn't allowing her to get away with just that.
If she's dead, then just tell us! If you don't, then we're going to believe she's alive!
Without thinking, I narrowed my eyes tight. That image of the worst possible outcome crossed my mind more than once or twice. There's no way Mion would ever forget about Satoko, yet her name was absent from the letters she wrote us. That left only one possible reason. Even I was able to imagine why, but I couldn't put it into words. Satoko's been taken away by those rioters from before. They said they were dragging her to Onikafuchi. Apparently they're going to spend 3 days submerging her, according to the rituals passed down in the village.
So she's alive! She's alive then? At least for now?
Rena and I both latched on Mion at once. However, neither of us had any thought of blaming Mion for nearly abandoning Satoko. Mion used the information she was able to gather as a Sonozaki to make a logical decision, and after bitter deliberation, she decided she wouldn't be able to save her.
I couldn't do anything! I couldn't do anything about it!
The council's officials took the lead after they added the shrine group, the youth group, the neighborhood watch, and other volunteers from the village. Their numbers swelled past 100 people. The watch is close with a hunting club too, so they're armed with at least 20 shotguns and rifles. Everyone keeps spouting Oyashiro-sama, like they've all been possessed. There's no mercy left in them. If I tried to protect Satoko, the villagers would have shot me to death without hesitation.
Like they did to you and my father?
Mion nodded bitterly as tears spilled from her eyes. She wept at her own lack of power to stop them, and for the lost lives of the villagers who still tried to uphold justice. I don't understand why. Everyone was normal just 3 days ago. They were reasonable then, but they've gotten mad in just the past 72 hours. Their eyes are bloodshot and they've lost all reason. They didn't go crazy just because the SDF left. They were crazy before then. The killer virus isn't what's scary now. It's everyone in the village. I have a few thoughts. This virus, it isn't one that drives people to death, but one that drives people to madness, making the villagers become demons one after another. Just try retracing the legend of Oyashiro-sama once more. Oyashiro-sama is the only one who can resolve this situation, and her reincarnation, Rika-chan, is nowhere to be found. Besides, Oyashiro-sama was a god anyway, right? They weren't human, were they? There's nothing we humans can do. Nothing! Calm down, Mion. I crouched down, and even knowing it would aggravate her wound, I held her head tight and let her hear my heartbeat. Thank you. While Rena and I were taking it easy without realizing what was going on, you were working hard behind the scenes to try and stop the rumors. I'm sure that's why the village wasn't swallowed by madness until today. If it wasn't for your hard work, the inevitable tragedy we face today would have consumed us long ago. So thank you, Mion. Ooh, but I think we're gonna pause here for today. My voice hurty. So, we're going to move on to drawing for a bit.